I want to talk about, first of all, the violence, the sexual violence against women in Ukraine. I almost, it's so horrific what I've been reading that I can almost can't repeat it. But gang rapes in front of their children, 11-year-old girls being raped, tongues being torn out of women's mouths. I mean, I think I could go on and on. It is barbaric. It is cruel. So, of course, one of my questions is what we are doing to help those survivors. And I just want to add, as I get on my soapbox, this is an example of how the cruel policies of the Republicans in this Congress not to allow funding for abortions, safe abortions, the ramifications. Hopefully there are other countries that are coming to the aid of these young girls and women. But tell us what we are able to do and what we are doing.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Well, this psychosocial support is something we are working with UNICEF in particular, and looking again for local partners, looking to see how we can support Ukrainian Health Ministry, which is normally, in the course of events where somebody who's survived sexual violence and the psychosocial and physical trauma and effects of that would go. And that's where, again, getting this balance right between, yes, let's fund the international organization so there's emergency support, but let's very quickly find a way to be tracking assistance to the health ministries where young women or women of all ages, in light of just the scale of the atrocities here, would naturally go in order to seek support. So I talked to the health minister about this again last week, and Atul Gawande met with him in the region in Poland. And once our mission is up and running, I'll be able to have, again, more specifics specifically about how we get our support into the health ministry to make sure that women have a place to go in light of everything that they have suffered. If I may just add, of course, this is part of also the documentary record, the testimony that these women are given about the war crimes and the crimes against humanity that are being committed by Putin's forces. And so the other aspect of this is USAID is funding a consortium of around 40 organizations that are a range of everything from organizations that were already doing war crimes documentation because of the war crimes committed in the East and in Crimea from the war that began in 2014, to new actors who are being enlisted in this cause. We've, as you know, set up a commission of inquiry through the Human Rights Council. The International Criminal Court has announced that they are opening an investigation. But also, again, our investments in the Ukrainian justice system here are going to be the ones that we've made in the past, but now the ones we are making in the present will aid the Ukrainian prosecutor's office in pursuing national war crimes cases as well, because they've shown every intention to do that.
Okay, that is very good to hear. Quick question on education. I know you agree, keeping girls in school is, that is one of the best ways to empower our future generation. I noticed there was a couple $100 million decrease in your request. And could you just explain to me, the reason for that, and what efforts you're going to make to support the girls in school?
Thank you. Well, let me just say that we're still part of a global campaign to try to press the Taliban to change their horrific decision, one, of course, that preceded the Burqa decision. And so one does not have grounds for optimism beyond the fact that, donor resources that had been intended to flow through UNICEF and other educational partners are now paused by and large as a tool of pressure. And so that means schools generally are not accessing the resources that they would have if the Taliban had made a different choice. But that's not your question. Your question...
Well, I guess, does that explain the reduction in the budget request?
No, because I think we want to live in we don't bank on failure here. We are hopeful that if we get the Qataris and and the Pakistanis and other governments that have more contact, more leverage, with the Afghan government, that we can prevail. I mean, again, we don't have grounds for optimism right now, but it's essential to do so. I think the short answer, honestly, Congresswoman, is it's still 693 million for basic ed and nearly 240 million for higher ed. It's balancing among all of the colossal needs that are existing right now. You heard Ranking Member Rogers' reaction to the budget request as it was, given the fallout from COVID, which very much lands, of course, in among young people, particularly among girls who have not yet gone back to school. We know how important these education investments are. We are just trying to ask for a sizable set of resources that we can expend. At the same time, we are meeting underfunded priorities like climate change, for example, that haven't had the resources that they've needed over many, many years.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I yield back. Let me just ask quickly, we talked a little bit about girls' education. And look, we know that COVID really disproportionately impacted women around the world. The World Economic Forum estimates it's going to take 267 years to close the gender gap in the economy. Well, it's almost as long as it's going to take here, probably, but obviously women are in a little better shape in our country. Tell me what kinds of things that you're going to be doing in terms to improve women's economic empowerment in the world.
Thank you so much. Well, that, as you know, is a critical pillar of President Biden's Gender Policy Council that he's created at the White House, run by Jen Klein, who I'm sure you work closely with. I think that this budget request that we put forward is the first budget request, that is reflective of the data that exists now, that has been amassed over the years, showing that without women's economic empowerment, we lose hundreds of billions of dollars every year in global GDP growth. And so it's a $2.6 billion request. And, there are a lot of different dimensions to what's captured there, including girls' education. But it's also, programs that would increase women and girls' representativeness in legislative bodies, something you know a lot about. It is for the first time as part of President Biden's global infrastructure initiative. We have the care economy treated as a pillar of infrastructure. So this is, in a sense, the Belt and Road, does these large bloated projects, saddling countries with great debt. We're coming out with digital infrastructure, health infrastructure, climate and clean energy infrastructure, but also gender infrastructure. And so I think within that, if we got some of the numbers right on the care economy and actually saw women who'd like to be part of the workforce, but just can't afford to be part of the workforce because there's no normative culture of families getting access to childcare at relevant stages. Fundamentally, we're not going to be able to overcome that barrier without dealing without making more investments in the care economy. So I'm thrilled that finally is reflected in the budget request as well.
Thank you. And real quick, I don't know whether there's any negotiations going on in the Ukraine with Russia, but I do hope that the administration encourages the participation of women, if that ever does happen. And with that, I'll yield back. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Administrator. It was good to see you again.